If you want to understand our relationship to resisting change and how to stop resisting change, then the following video from my trusted Pathway to Purpose blueprint is for you. Check it out. Okay, so welcome back and welcome to this video, which we are going to call What Resists Persists. So far in module 1, we've looked at accepting where we are currently, not being in an argument with life, not being in argument with what is. We've looked at how we are conditioned, how we've really been running on autopilot for a lot of our lives, you know, having conversations with young versions of ourselves. We've started to look at some of our limiting beliefs, hopefully starting to see how we've made those all up for ourselves. We've started to look at fear, what fear is, where it comes from. And now we've started to realize that as we start to expand, we're expanding our consciousness, we're finding our higher self, we're looking further out there to find what truly fulfills us. We start to feel resistance. Now, resistance really, it comes at the edge of fear. And it's where we get into a position where not only do we have negative thoughts and limiting beliefs, but neurology starts to come into play. We start to get feelings and emotions in the body which are associated with those negative limiting beliefs, and we get stuck in emotion. And often we trying to push that emotion away, right? We're trying to push it to the side like it doesn't matter, like we can get on with our lives without it. And this is what resistance is. But as I'm sure you're aware, trying to keep emotions buried and feelings buried is very difficult, and they always come back to bite you. And in fact, it's only really completely and utterly facing fear, you know, letting go of that resistance, where we can really become free to create anything that we want to do, anything that our heart desires. Now remember, as I said, resistance, we think of it as such a bad thing, and we want to hide from it, we want to push it away. But resistance is a good thing. It's an indication that you're in the right place at the right time, that you want to grow, you want to develop. So we really need to try and move into that fear and let go of the resistance, but don't label it as wrong. Embrace it. You know, resistance is really us not willing to do the things that we need to do, you know, to get the things that we want, our heart truly desires. And most of us really, we have two lives, right? One is the life that we're living, and the other is the unlived life which is inside of us. And between the two stands resistance. Now it's the root of more unhappiness than anything. I mean, have you ever, I don't know, tried to lose weight, or tried to ask someone out on a date, or tried to start a business, or tried to start some kind of project, but you've never followed through on any of these things? Well, if you understand any of that, then you'll know what resistance is. And I know that every one of you will understand what resistance is in some shape or form. Now, the word genius is a Latin name, and it was used by the Romans to denote like a higher spirit, or something guiding us to our true potential. And really, the shadow of genius is resistance. You know, resistance has been, I guess, all over me for a lot of my life. It's caused me such pain. You know, always knowing that I wanted to do something else. I've always known that I wanted to run my own business, but not really quite known, you know, what that would be, what it would look like. But so I've always kind of pushed things aside, and I've carried on doing things that I don't want to do. But I actually realized that giving up resistance is even It's even harder than giving up drugs and alcohol, and I know all about that. I mean, why is it that it takes things like going through addiction or bereavement or maybe health scares or all of these major sort of changes in our life that actually brings down the resistance for us able to start to look at what our heart really desires? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because for most of us, usually when we haven't been through these things, this feeling, this internal intuition, this voice inside of us is telling us that there's something more for us to do. Yet we're too busy listening to the ego and the negative beliefs to really tap into it, to really do something about it. Resistance is very, very real for us, and it can bury us. It really can. It nearly buried me. Put it this way, I mean, did you actually know that Hitler was a very keen artist, and actually that was his first love? I believe he studied it at university, painting or some form of art. But I guess resistance got the better of him. And I guess we could say that it was easier for Hitler to start World War II than it was simply to face a blank sheet of canvas. That's some food for thought, isn't it? So what about you? Are you really prepared to go on doing the things that you've always been doing, to be unfulfilled in your life when you know that there's something better out there for you? Are you committed to go forward with this finding your purpose process and then implementing it and creating an amazing life for yourself? I hope so. So as I say, you know, resistance, it's very real to us. And that's the real thing, actually. You know, fear, when we think of fear, is that really real? Isn't that just imaginary? Fear is really all the projections that we put into the future, all the worst case scenarios. This might happen, that might happen. But it's not real, it's all imagination stuff. Resistance is actually real. Resistance is feeling, it's emotion, and it's also, you know, manifesting as not acting or taking the wrong actions. It's a real thing. But it's also strangely invisible, and it's insidious. It's really insidious. It has no conscience. You know, you cannot reason with it. It's always lying to you, and it's always self-generated. Now, resistance isn't personal to you because everyone has it. It's universal, so do remember that. But also realize that it never actually really goes away. Even though we can deal with all of these things, we can deal with all the mindset, we can deal with resistance, we can work with it, but it will always come back and bite you in the ass. It will always be there. It's something that we always have to work with. I think, who was it? Henry Fonda, I think at the age of like 75, when he was still acting on stage, said he always still threw up before he went out on stage, even a seasoned actor like that. So creating a new life for yourself, one from purpose, it's not easy. We're going to come up with these fears of failure, fears of success, all of these different judgments. And even if our heart really desires something, even when we found that purpose and we're ready to roll with it, all of these judgments and all of this resistance will still come up. I mean, that's why for me, simply taking a course which is to find your life purpose isn't enough. It's not enough just to find it, because you're going to have all of these tools that I'm going to teach you to break through resistance, to work with fear, to actually go on and implement what it is that you want to do. So you may think, well, shouldn't it be easy though? Shouldn't it be easy, Rob? Shouldn't it be a breeze? You know, we talk about sort of having ease and flow when we get into our purpose. Well, yes, that's true. We do get into these states of ease and flow, but resistance will come again. And actually, the whole point about living from life purpose is you're always looking to get out of your comfort zone. You're always looking to push the barriers. And that will mean being uncomfortable. So actually going and living your life purpose is actually quite difficult. It's challenging. There will be resistance. So it's kind of counterintuitive. in a way, because you'd think it would be so easy, but it will be challenging. And you'll say, well, yeah, but life's hard anyway, isn't it, Rob? So why do I need to do all this stuff? Well, yeah, life can be hard. It can be difficult, but that's usually because you're unfulfilled and you're going through the motions. And actually, what you perceive to be hard is just your judgment of what's going on outside of you because you're just so unhappy. You know, working through a life purpose will be challenging, will be hard, but there will be fulfillment, because what you're actually doing from life purpose is you're working towards something. It doesn't mean there won't be resistance and you have to push through it, but it's working towards something and it's rewarding. You know, living life in other ways where we're trying to avoid things, where we're just going through the motions, that's no life at all, is it really? You know, living a life of purpose, it isn't a breeze. It will be challenging. There will be resistance that comes up. It will be tough, but it's enjoyable. So resistance will come in the form of procrastination. That's certainly something that you will see. And a procrastination which can become a habit, maybe even a habit of a lifetime. And what will then come from that is a sense of unfulfillment, a sense of unhappiness, and then we'll start to see symptoms of resistance. And those can be things like looking for drugs and sex and alcohol and food and watching TV and doing absolutely anything that you can do to avoid the feelings and the emotions that are coming up, the resistance against exactly what it is that you truly actually want to do, which then can lead on to depression, and then that'll go into prescription drugs and antidepressants and the like. This is all a resistance to the neurosis that you've created in your own mind. Do you relate to any of this? I've been through absolutely all of those symptoms, absolute textbook for me, to then get to a point where I've absolutely had enough, and that resistance has just become so powerful that it's actually dropped. It's a real paradox that when you push yourself so hard against that resistance, at some point it has to drop. Something has to give, right? So how do we combat resistance, which isn't going through drugs, sex, alcohol, food, blah, 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 and then nearly dying, right? There are other ways that we can do. There are good working strategies that we can put into place, yeah? We can have goal setting and things like that, which are great. We can change our mindset to one of being committed rather than attached, as I've talked about before. Journaling is a great way to deal with resistance because, again, it brings up a lot of the patterns. We start to see the habits and behaviors that we do commonly, and that can enable us then to go on and do some of these exercises that I've talked about. We can get coached on these things. We can work on certain limiting beliefs when we find out what those patterns of behaviors are. But here's the thing, and it's the most important thing about this video, and it's actually the title of the video, which is whatever you resist persists. You know, if you keep pandering to this resistance, it will come and get you. There is no beating it. You are expanding. You're going to feel more and more resistance until you're going to have to face it. You have to face the reasons for this resistance. You have to face your limiting beliefs. You have to do the shadow work. You have to look internally. Shine a light on the darkest parts on yourself that maybe you don't even want to look at, because you cannot keep this thing called resistance at bay. It is coming for you. One analogy I like to use is it's like trying to keep a beach ball underwater. I used to do this for years with my emotions and the resistance to change in my life. think about holding that beach ball. You ever held it under the sea or under the pool when you're on holiday, and you try and hold it down and it's moving around like this, and you move a little bit to the side and it starts nearly popping up, and then you have to sort of adjust yourself, and you're keeping it down until some point it just pops up at the side of you. Because you cannot beat it. It's going to come for you. But actually, when you let it pass all the way through you and it shoots up like that beach ball, you actually get complete freedom. Another way of looking at it is if you put your two hands together. It's even better if you do it with someone else, but put your two hands together and press equal pressure on each side. You know, there's a resistance from both sides. You know, nothing is moving, nothing is going anywhere. But when you take away one hand and you're pushing with both, what happens? It moves straight through. If you take away the resistance, if you let the fear pass into you, you step into that fear, you go past that edge of resistance into the fear, we actually start to understand that that is where we start to grow. Now, I might have said this once, a million times, and I'll keep saying it to you, is that, you know, we don't learn from just information alone. We have to have that experiential learning. We have to get past resistance. Now, I know I've only got a short video to shoot around resistance here. Again, there's a lot of information on YouTube, in the Facebook group, also with my private and group coaching. We do tons of work around this. There are many different techniques to release emotions, to release negative thought patterns, and I'll be taking you through all of those later on in the course. Okay, I'll catch you in the next video. So if you want to see more videos like this and truly understand how this all fits into finding your life's purpose and implementing it, then you can check out my course by that very same title on Udemy by clicking on the link in the description below. I will take you from the conception of a new life to a state of being where you will create exactly the life you want and understand how to get paid for it. So click the link in the description below if that sounds like something you'd like to pursue. I'll see you soon.